The Soundwave Chronicles podcast, brought to you by FD Productions, engages in conversations with pioneering musicians, producers, and experts from the music industry. We get the inside scoop on what it takes to make it in the music industry today by delving into the sources of their inspiration, their creative process, and much more as we explore a wide range of their experiences. I am your host, Afterlove, and I want to welcome you today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. I've got a very special guest today by the name of CIPRI, an Italian-American songwriter. He's a recording artist and producer. CIPRI's compositions combine elements of electronic, alternative pop, trip hop, and atmospheric orchestral ambience, which display his image through deep, dark vibrato and operatic vocals and rich falsettos. He's a very talented individual. He's connected with some pretty heavy hitters in the music industry, signed to Bentley Records. He has produced music for Gucci Mane, Future, and other major names, connected with Britney Spears and other household names. I'm very excited to welcome our guest, CIPRI. CIPRI, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for, I know you're a busy guy. Thank you so much for spending time to chat with us today.
Not a problem. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So how did you get into music and how young were you?
That's a great question. I was fairly young. I was probably, my first mark, I guess, in the actual music industry was when I signed with BMI, Broadcast Music Inc. For the people that don't know that are listening, it's a songwriting, basically for songwriters is what it was initially meant for, and they collect your royalties and whatnot. So back in the day, I want to say it was maybe 2010, 2011. There was this huge promo by BMI at the time. They had Usher, they had Lady Gaga, they had Prince, they had all these really famous names that were promoting BMI. So I thought to myself at the time, I thought, I can sing and I love music. Why not start off in the industry as a songwriter? So I signed with BMI. Obviously, my songs didn't get anywhere at the time because I wasn't signed to a record label yet. That was probably my big start, was with BMI. I always tell other artists, if you're looking to start in the industry, start with BMI. Start with the basic concept of songwriting and getting your songs out there.
Is that BMI as in BMI and ASCAP?
Yes, correct.
So they're basically helping you to collect the royalties and from radio play and so on and so forth. That way you can earn off of your music.
Correct.
And then so then you moved from BMI to Bentley?
So I signed with BMI, like I said, I think it was 2011, 2012 maybe. And at that point, I was just releasing music on my own. At the time I had used TuneCore, I had used DistroKid, I had used a lot of these
digital distributors, right?
Exactly. Where, basically anybody can go and get a song on Spotify or get a song on Apple Music or get a song on whatever platform you want. So At the time, I want to say probably around 2015, I released my first single, which was a mess. I'm not going to lie to you. It doesn't sound
What do you mean by that in terms of publicity or in terms of just the single, the quality of the song?
The quality of the song, I think, because I was so frustrated trying to get the right sound that I went through like 30 different demos, 30 different producers, 30 different revisions of the same song. And I finally, at that point, I was like, forget it. I'll just choose one of the 30 demos that I have. And so I released it. And then I continued releasing. And for some reason or another, it was through Instagram. I was constantly posting videos of me singing and of my music as well. At the end of 2019, I think, it was right before the pandemic hit, Bentley Records found me on Instagram. And at first, I'm not going to lie, at first I was like, is this real? Like, why would they, you get spam messages from people all the time on Instagram. Yeah. And I got an email with my CEO. He was introducing himself and the A&R and all of that. And the first thing I wrote back was, I've been scammed before. Is this real? Because there are a lot of scams in the industry with artist development deals and artist this, artist that, where they just take your money, to be honest with you. They don't really
360 deals.
I know what 360 deals are. Yeah, I was never offered one though. But there are, I don't want to say predators because it's not the right word, but there are a lot of negative, influential people in the industry as well that just want your money. So
Shady deals.
Exactly. So I just remember my first initial response was like, this can't be real. And then, you know, I emailed them back and we started talking back and forth more and more. And I was like, okay, they're actually legit. Maybe I should get the ball rolling and sign with them. So that was 2019. And since then, I was on an album with Gucci Mane. I was on an album with Future. I was on and Bow Wow, and like there's a bunch of different names on that album. And let me think. And a few other singles, a few other collabs I've done since that time. And I've also released my own singles through Bentley as well. And they had, I wouldn't say significant success, but success that I feel is appropriate for where I'm at.
Well, that's a good frame of mind to be in. A lot of people just feel like, okay, this, you know, while the sky should never be the limit, it's like it's hard to achieve contentment or happiness if the sky's always up there and you just can't reach it. And so that's impressive to hear that you're kind of in a state of like you're cool with the state of achievement that you're at. So just to go back to prior to 2019, so you had released how many singles? And on what, like just on all platforms? What were you doing?
It was through DistroKid at the time. I want to say it was through DistroKid. And I released, I want to say maybe 3 singles, maybe 4. At the I honestly don't remember. It was so long ago. I know I did The Lonely Queen, I did Purple Beaches, and I think I did one or 2 other ones that I had released at that time. But I have taken the other ones down since then. A reason
being they had requested that your label required them? Did your label require that you take them down, or you just you weren't happy with them?
No, I to be honest with you, I'm very self-critical of my own work. I mean, I think that's kind of obvious as demonstrated with the 30, you know, different revisions.
Of those singles.
Yeah, correct.
So is this that you were releasing it and then you take it down and re-release it?
I would release it and then I would like maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I would change my mind and I'd be like, no, I actually like this version better.
And then what would you do? You would release a duplicate, or you would just kind of take down the old one? And
I would take down the old one and then put the new one up.
So like 30 of the same song in different versions you would release?
Different takes, different effects, different. Yeah, it was
fascinating. I've never known an artist to publish and then remove that song and then republish and then remove it. But that's testament to I guess how much love you have for your music.
That's true. It's true. I mean, I do love music, and it's just it's always been a part of me. So I feel honored that I'm able to do what I want to do.
Very cool. So you were just, you know, you release these 3 singles, 2019 comes around, you get signed, you're like, what the hell? And then you pretty much launch into like superstar territory. And so now what projects are you in the middle of at the moment?
Oh boy. Right now I have an album that I'm working on. That's been my goal now. Well, actually, that's been my goal since I was signed. So if my CEO is watching this, shout out to Luca Days. my album is in the works. But right now I have 7 songs. I'm trying to make it to 10. So my plan is anyway to release it sometime within the next year.
Very cool.
It's a good goal to have.
And are your fans able to listen to those 7 songs now that they're sort of like hovering and not actually published until you have 10 as an album? Are they released as singles and then you make them an album, or
no?
Are they somewhere hiding on your website that you incentivize fans to come in?
No, they're all in the vault right now. They're all locked down. So
that's go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say they're all locked down right now. And I look forward to surprising people with the album. I guess you could say that. It'll be a pleasant surprise.
So you're building momentum over the year.
Correct.
That's interesting, because a lot of times I guess the generic advice is maybe it doesn't make sense to follow generic advice because everybody's doing it, is to release singles every month or so, or every so often, to keep fans engaged, and then compile into an album. But it's interesting because I remember learning about Dua Lipa, learning from her, I guess the person who signed her to
Okay.
Universal or whatever it was, and he said she was working on an album for the full year, and they required her, I guess, by contract to take nothing, or they recommended that she take no opportunities for that whole year. So sort of building up momentum, and then sort of launch into this full-fledged album release.
Mhm.
Um,
Kind of the same thing. And in essence, I mean, like I said, I have released singles through Bentley already. But they're just singles. They're not going to be on the album. So
so you have no interest or self pressure to keep the momentum up throughout the year. Like you're just sort of hanging out, working quietly in the studio, and then looking to surprise people after a bunch of months or
yes,
any.
but no. Yes, but no. I would say, I mean, I do a lot of collabs. I have another collab coming out in, I want to say a month, less than a
Mhm,
month.
mhm,
Um, I do like, features on other people's songs. That's how I continue to build my momentum, I guess you could say.
mhm.
Um, but no, I'm not consistent with singles, I guess you could say that.
Okay, so you still do engage fans.
Mhm.
It's still kind of like, would you say it's your full-time job, or are you doing something else on the side?
I would say it's my full-time job.
Okay.
Takes a lot of energy, a lot of time to go through all the Instagram messages and comments and all of that. Yeah, I would say it's a full-time job.
So would you say that what would you say the majority of your efforts are put towards as an artist at this point in your life? Like prior to, the album's a few months down the road, what are you spending all your time doing, or most of your time doing?
Most of my time trying to get my sound right still.
So you're
um,
spending, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So you're spending most of your time in the studio.
Correct. And
So
then
you're not,
like social media is my second job, basically, my second life. Yeah,
so as you mentioned, dealing with DMs and then fans and comments and that type of stuff.
correct.
Are you working on monetizing those fans now, or are you just hoping that, like, you know you keep them engaged now and then they'll buy the album? Is that the main mission? Are you selling merch? What are you doing to kind of work that out?
Um, that's a good question, actually. Um, I mean, I engage with them daily, I would say that.
Hmm.
Um, I don't have merch right now. So that's definitely not applicable to me. But
Uh-huh.
I do think I think it's important to engage with your fans because I think there is a, how do I say this properly? There's a boundary between an artist and a fan, and I feel like it's been very much so intermingled and intertwined within the past, I don't know, since the pandemic, probably. I mean, like, you see people throwing bottles at Cardi B, or you see people, on stage, and they're big artists, and you see people having zero respect and zero lack of boundaries, I guess you could say. They did it to Bieber, they did it to Maluma, they've done it to so many people the past, since the pandemic, essentially. And I find it very odd. So for me, I engage with my fans. I think it's important to engage with them.
Mhm.
But I also feel like sometimes I personally need to take a step back and say, okay, well, is this appropriate? Is this normal? Is this a topic of discussion that I should be having with a fan, or should I be having this with a producer, or things like that?
So this is interesting, because, well, you don't know this about me, but I'm obviously coming from somebody who's entrenched in the music industry.
Mm,
Um, I'm a performer. I also deal with fans, that type of stuff. Um, and I've found that there have been like a number of inappropriate fan interactions. It's just what got a PO box. And I guess the question is, I'm assuming you have one, or do you
I do. I have
give them
multiple. Yes,
multiple? Oh, so
I
you like
do.
kind of categorize them by like psycho fan or really awesome fan, funding fan? Like what, how do you separate the PO boxes?
I mean, honestly, the separating the PO boxes, one is just for fans, one is just for the business.
Okay.
But yeah, but I do have multiple.
I guess you'll need another one once you have the merch store up and running.
Probably.
So, but I guess it's a whole other bag of worms. That's something. Well, you could DIY anything these days, but you're dealing with a record label, so I'm assuming they give you limitations, or at least they provide support for whatever initiatives you're looking to kind of launch in your music career. So in the
Absolutely.
case, yeah.
Yeah. And on that note too, I would say, Bentley Records itself, I mean, they are an independent label, but I will say they are everything that I've ever dreamed of in a label.
Hmm.
I literally have zero complaints, and that's very rare
Hmm.
coming from me. I complain about everything. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Wow.
So they are phenomenal. Everything they do, from the A&Rs to the producers to the CEO himself, to all of them, they work cohesively. They always want what's best for their artist. I think that's important. And they allow their artists to retain their masters, which I also think is an important aspect. When you see artists like Taylor Swift, you see artists like a lot of people who have been screwed over with people buying
Oh,
masters and then having to re-record them or whatever the case may be.
okay. So you're talking about Justin Bieber's manager who signed him. What's his name?
Not Scott, what's his name?
We're both
Bronner. Bronner. His last name's
Braun. Scooter
Scooter
Braun.
Braun. That's it.
Everybody knows him. Like, um, it's funny because the guy doesn't seem to age. You look at videos of him like 20, 30 years ago when he was just getting Bieber involved, and he looks about the same. I don't know what he does, like but and also like I thought he was a kid when he was signing him. Maybe he was, but he obviously knew the game to
Hmm.
kind of launch this whole machine himself. But I guess he got himself into some trouble with Taylor Swift, pissing her off.
Mhm.
I figured if he bought the masters from her, he would have wanted to kind of keep a good relationship. But as I understand it, she kind of dislikes, maybe it's just the vibe, the personality, maybe he's just I thought it was something related to being a male chauvinist of some sort. I don't know. I don't know if you know.
It could be. I honestly don't know either.
Yeah. It's
I
an
know.
interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's very interesting to watch. I also, just as a side note, I noticed this is, I think, last week or the week before. Um, who was it? It was Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato, and was it Bieber? It might have been Bieber or somebody else, who they've all disassociated themselves with Scooter.
Scooter?
Yeah,
Really?
been very recent in the news. Yeah. So I don't
That
know.
is
Something is going on with
fascinating
that. Yeah.
because he's one of the heavy hitters. He is one of the most powerful people in the music industry. So I'm wondering. Look, they're in that position. They made their hundreds of millions. They're all household names, so yeah. Um, I'm curious. Not that I should be wasting my time finding out why, because I don't think I'd ever be in that situation. But it's fascinating. Going back to the point you made about how everybody's going. I don't know how there's been this bizarre dynamic between fans and superstars, at least, such as Bieber and Cardi B. Um, I hadn't seen it. I'm not following the news much with them. I'm just sort of focusing on, I don't know, production stuff. But
Mhm.
I I guess I wonder how that's all going down and why. And is the world just losing its mind? I remember seeing one video of Bieber when he was like really naive and young. I'm gonna say maybe 18, 19. They put him
Okay.
on this massive stage in front of I don't know 50,000 people, and kids are like throwing stuff at him, and he's like reprimanding them like he's a teacher and just, he was really embarrassing himself. And I'm just wondering where was Scooter in all this? Like what didn't he prep him for a big stage like that, or did he not care? Or is he just sort of interested in, I don't know, launching his career, making him famous, and then just sort of throwing him on stage, allowing him to make an ass of himself? Just things that kind of wondering. I
I
don't know if you have any
ponder the
thoughts
same
on it.
thing. I think about the same thing a lot. And I think to myself, now you've got, three other major household names that are dropping him. So something is up with that. That's just my personal view on it, I guess, anyway. But
Yeah, I mean, it could be that they're maybe demanding a larger percentage, or he's demanding a larger percentage because he wants to make them bigger. I don't know. Um, but do you ever worry about? Well, I don't know if you're involved so much with the touring aspects yet, or is that something?
not yet.
Uh,
It's something that I know Bentley is working on, but I personally haven't toured yet. I know other artists that have, but me personally, no.
so the bulk of your income is not really live performances. It's more like streaming, that type of stuff.
Correct.
Okay. I know a lot of artists that are sick of I'm not trying to turn you off to touring, but a lot of people complain about it. Aside from Michael Jackson, but
I mean, he
the
was a
late Michael.
genius though, in his own right. Yeah.
He's a what?
He was a genius in his own right. I mean, personally, he was a huge inspiration for me. So I can't say anything negative about him. But I think that man was an absolute genius. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with that.
Okay.
He changed the industry, but I was just talking about how in one of his later interviews, he pretty much explicitly stated how unhappy he was during the touring process because while it's cool to be up on stage, and you don't really think of this from the perspective of being a fan, he was kind of locked in these homes during the tour because the risks involved in, like, I don't know, people kidnapping him or wanting to, I don't know, him just getting harmed were so high. More than likely that was the reason. So just interesting.
It is
But
very interesting.
it's really it's an artist's dream to want to do international tours. And I'm assuming it's something that you look forward to.
Definitely, definitely. I feel like I don't feel like I have enough material out yet to actually do a tour. So yeah, over time though.
So what now are you looking to do maybe one concert here or there? I know, I just did an interview with amazing guy out in Europe who just does he does sync for his income, for the majority of income, and then he just does some big concerts, like once a month or something like that with a big orchestra featuring his music. Is that something of interest to you?
I would say so.
Mm-hmm. He's I guess he's his focus is on having a family, so he's not really looking to like hop on a tour bus and go from city to city and come back tired after 3 months. But I don't know. It's something that
It's a thought that has crossed my mind. I
yeah,
wouldn't be opposed to it. I think though with everything in the industry, you have to kind of just take it as it comes, and then you decide if you like it or not. I don't feel like you can have a preconceived notion of, oh, will touring be bad for me or will it be good for me? For me personally, I'd rather wait till I'm in that spot and then
yeah,
decide.
that totally makes sense. Sounds like the mature decision. Back to the crazy fans. Do you have a fear of I don't know, of fans that are, I don't know, a little too crazed? Or is that
Yeah,
something that doesn't cross your mind?
it does cross my mind because there are, I mean, it's a difficult predicament to be in because you want to engage with them, you want to talk with them, you want them to listen to your music, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some that become very aggressive, I guess is the right word. And they
Yeah.
become super fans, they be like almost obsessed with you a little bit, I would say.
And
um
super fans are your biggest supporters, right?
exactly. So I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. But there have been times in the past where I've been like, okay, I need to keep this person at arm's length,
Uh-huh.
just because you don't know what to expect.
Yeah. I completely hear you. Tell me about I don't know your background. You're from Spain and now you're in Florida.
Well, no, I was born in Florida. my mother is an Italian citizen, so I was born with dual nationality. I was born with American and Italian passports and birth certificates. So when I was, let me think, when I was 23, 24, I went to live in Italy for about a year and a half. I taught English there.
Oh,
And then after that, I went to Spain to get my master's degree. I lived in the Basque Country for about 2 years, and that was very, very interesting as well. So,
could you tell me more about what was interesting? Is there something like what was interesting about the experience in Spain?
Spain specifically, I would say, I did my degree in psycholinguistics, well, linguistics actually, but the side branch is psycholinguistics. So how the brain processes language, how the brain understands language, and music and language are both connected in the brain. So for me personally, I found that fascinating. So when I went there, I actually didn't know this prior to going there, but when I enrolled at the school, I found out that one of my main professors, and the classes in Spain are really small. They're like, I had like 8 kids in each class. Whereas, in the US, you're in like an auditorium filled with like 80 other people.
Yeah.
So it was very one-on-one. It was I learned a lot in Spain, or in the Basque Country. But I think what was so interesting to me was their language is not related to anything else. So Basque is not related to Spanish. It's not related to French. It's a language isolate. So there is no connection to any of the surrounding areas. Like nobody knows how they got there or how their language has evolved and been there since pre-dawn times,
It's completely unrelated.
Completely unrelated. There is no other language that can be connected to Basque.
It doesn't have its roots like in Latin.
No, nothing. It cannot be traced.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, no,
Well,
it was for me too. It was so
I
I
guess
mean,
we can only make one conclusion from that.
yeah,
Mars.
yeah, outer space, something. I don't know. But yeah, I for me personally, I found it very interesting to see, you know, um a culture and a language, because I was studying how language works and languages and linguistics, and just to see and to go to a place that has survived for thousands of years. I mean, Caesar didn't conquer them, the Roman Empire didn't conquer them. They were the only part of Europe that wasn't conquered.
And there were attempts to conquer them.
Oh yeah,
I'm so
yeah.
So they were superior with their technology. Must have been their
They
tech.
were here. I think honestly, I mean, a lot of people give credence to the fact that they're in the middle of the mountains. Like the Pyrenees Mountains are on like this side of the Basque Country, so it's hard to cross over. It would be hard for any invader or um, what's the right word?
Yeah, an invader.
Wartime anything
Yeah.
to even get to them.
So they were like they were in the so they were at the base of the mountain. Is that
The
where they were
the
how they were protected, or they were at the top of the mountain? Is that how they were able to fight off
No,
potential invaders?
The Pyrenees Mountains like literally separates the Basque Country from the rest of France and from Spain. So I don't know how. I just they're huge mountains. That's all I can say. They're bigger than
Is
anything I've ever seen.
is this where all the Wheel of Time movies are shot? Because that's what I'm envisioning. These gorges and these
It's
like
very how do I
Lord of the
say it?
Rings.
Yes, but no. There is like a mystical atmosphere to it, I would
Mhm.
say. Absolutely. Yes.
I'm sure a few movies were shot around there.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I, my wife and I have been binge watching these fantasy movies, so that's pretty
Okay.
much the backdrop of any narrative, between the Wheel of Time and the anyway, back to you. Um, how about the language barrier?
Well, yeah, that was interesting. I'll say that much. I mean, I'm fluent in English, Spanish, and Italian. Um,
But were
Spanish,
you when you moved there?
yes.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was already fluent. But
Hmm.
so my classes were in Spanish in Spain. Um, however, I couldn't, how do I say this properly? Basque is very hard. I mean, you walk around the cities and, you know, there are signs and the signs go in Spanish, French, English, and then Basque.
Mm-hmm.
So there's four languages that you're reading on the subway or on the metro or on whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I spent 2 years trying to learn the language. To be honest with you, I would say it's harder than Arabic. I couldn't get anything. Nothing retains up here.
Huh.
So you know, I know how to say hello, I know how to say good morning, I know how to say please and thank you, but other than that, Basque is very, very hard.
So you weren't learning in Basque then?
No, I was learning in Spanish.
Okay, which you were fluent in. Hmm. That's fascinating. Um, but you specifically went there because you were interested in the topics,
Yeah,
the
I was interested
linguistics,
in the
linguistics.
topics. Yeah,
Mhm.
and also to going back to what I was about to say before was that I didn't know prior to going that one of my main professors, she was actually the protege for Noam Chomsky, and
I was
he's like
just
the leader.
thinking
Yeah, go
when
ahead.
you
No, I'm sorry.
said neurolinguistics, that's the first, like, I pictured Noam Chomsky giving his lectures, and
Yeah,
the name escaped me. This is fascinating.
my
Okay.
so my not my thesis advisor, but the head of my program basically, and she was also my professor. She taught me psycholinguistics.
Huh.
Um, her she did her dissertation at MIT under Noam, um, and she
Mhm.
still talks to him to this day.
Really?
So yeah, I found that to be a really um, very interesting and a valuable learning experience learning from her. I learned more from her than I think I learned from anybody else in my entire academic career.
Huh. This is fascinating. I'm
Glad.
um I'm just like I was talking about your the idea here is to talk about your music career, but I just we could veer off topic a little. Why do you think, as somebody with a neuro-linguistic background and a student of his student, um, that he was so politically involved?
What do you mean? Like in
Well, he was more famous for his being this outspoken like
political critic,
representative of,
right?
yeah, critic and of the government. And it's sort of what lent him credibility wasn't his career in neurolinguistics per se, as it was just his genius and the fact that he was like this MIT professor.
Hmm.
That's what seemed to be the general consensus. So what are your thoughts on that, or if you have any?
Um, I think it is interesting. I mean, it is a valid point what you said. You know, he was kind of I wouldn't say thrown into the limelight, but um he definitely gains more public what's the word? Recognition
Yeah.
through both his books and through his opinions, I feel,
Mhm.
uh, and his beliefs. But personally, I don't do politics. I consider myself apolitical. uh,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I mean, I guess I wasn't trying to corner you into telling us your political perspective at all. I was
no, no,
just
you're fine.
curious
You're
what
fine.
your thoughts are on, why somebody like himself was so involved in like a different kind of career. Like it's not like he was a poli sci professor, you know.
Exactly.
Uh,
No, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
yeah,
I think honestly, I mean, from what I know, basically, he's a very intelligent man, and that's, I mean, the easiest way to sum it up, I feel.
yeah. Um, what's also interesting about him, and then we'll get back to you, is I understand his general philosophy was such that language is a function of evolution, meaning it's not just like by accident, a king decided to make up a bunch of words and told his subjects and everybody else to take on that language. That would have been my assumption. Like the more influential people in society, they sort of brand these, they sort of create new language.
Mhm.
But his is sort of like more along the lines of evolution, what was more natural, like padre, I don't know, mother, father, like words that you would expect a child to immediately be able to pronounce. And that's sort of evolving into like the language that we have today. Is that part of like what you've learned and what your
Yeah,
perspective is?
absolutely. Absolutely. I would say from my perspective and from what I know and from what I've been taught, I would say language is innate. It's
Hmm.
built into us as human beings.
And yet it's so different across the globe.
Correct. And I also find it interesting that, just as a side note to what you just said, I find it very interesting that most of the world is multilingual. They speak more than one language. And then you look at the United States and we're the complete opposite, you know?
That's because we're a bunch of arrogant pricks.
Yeah, you could say that.
We do
So,
police the world.
yeah.
I thank God every day that I have the convenience of, speaking English, and everybody else has to sort of speak English to me when they're from a different country.
Mhm.
I don't know how much longer that's going to last as the dollar weakens
Yeah.
and starts to favor the yen and whatever else. Um, but back to your music career, I apologize.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Is there something that you have worked on, recently that you're really excited to share? Talk about recent collaboration, even the
Uh,
genre. Like I don't, we don't, you haven't shared. Do you stick with one genre, Gucci Mane genre? I don't know, pop, hip hop. It seems
I've
like you
done
cover a bunch, right?
yeah, no, that is true. I've done a lot of different genres. My first collab actually was on a reggaeton album, a reggae album. Then I did hip hop, then I did a rap album, then I released a pop single, then I released I'm kind of like all over the place, I guess you could say, in terms of genres. Yeah, no, that
Mhm.
would be an accurate depiction, absolutely.
And so the question of the hour is why? Why do you choose so many different genres? Is it because of your fans or is it because of you? Is it because you're not satisfied with one genre? You feel like why should you be stuck in one corner?
That's a good
All the
question.
above.
That's a very good question. I don't feel like I'm stuck in one corner, but I don't like to mentally put myself in that box either, if that makes sense. I rather explore all of it than just stick
Mhm.
to one genre.
You're kind of looking to see what takes off or what's more, I don't know, what does better,
Exactly,
which genre
exactly.
works better with your voice. Mhm. And so you don't have a preference then, having released different, songs under different genres,
Like
or
a
do you?
preference for the genre.
Yeah, do you have do you prefer pop? Do you prefer, I don't know, hip hop,
Um,
rap?
I wouldn't say I have a preference. I would say though that I am better at pop. That's
Mhm.
probably though because I had Britney Spears as a mentor for almost 10 years. So I was exposed to pop from a very early age.
Mhm.
And I know almost every pop song there is. So yeah.
And I am just about dying to ask you a question about how that experience was, but we're going to steer clear. Whatever you'd like to share, you are welcome to.
I'll
Um,
just say I'll say
yeah.
I don't want to leave you with nothing. So I'll just say, Brittany is a very sweet girl, very, very kind person. Um, Probably the kindest person I've ever really encountered in my whole life.
Mhm.
Uh, Her gratitude, her grace. I mean, people nowadays, they look at her on Instagram,
Mhm.
and keep in mind, I haven't been in contact with her since 2017. We were friends from 2008 to 2017. Um, but people look at her Instagram now and they see that she's dancing and or whatever commentary that they have or opinions. People will always have an opinion about her, I guess is what I'm trying to get across.
Mhm.
You know, but I think people forget too, that she's performed her entire life. um I personally, I don't see it any different for her to not want to perform on stage versus her performing in her bedroom. I'll say that much.
And that's what she would do on stage anyway.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, she's a performer. That's what she's built to do. She knows how to do it. She's one of the best.
Mhm.
So I think, just to defend her, because I will always defend her. She was a great person to me. um, I think it's important to realize, her past and to acknowledge that this is a person who's been touring, who's been on multiple world tours throughout her entire life. I don't think it's appropriate for people to judge her or to make commentary about her posting her dances on Instagram and things like that. Personally, it bothers me because I knew her, you know, so.
So you feel like people should be more respectful to Britney Spears. When they post a comment, they should post something more respectful, positive, loving, caring, whatever, as opposed to judgmental.
I would say so. And the media as well. I mean, granted, you know, you have TMZ and other tabloids that are not exactly the nicest of characters. But, you know, they constantly pick on her for dancing and posting her dancing videos. I don't see anything wrong with it. That's what she's been doing her whole life. Let her continue. If that's what makes her happy, so be it.
Do, do you think that the labels or the paparazzi, I don't know, the media is kind of framing her in a negative light, just sort of make money off of you know her efforts?
I would say it's probably always been like that for her.
So they did her dirty.
They have not been nice to her. I'll say that much. She's a very, like I said, you know, people see that image on Instagram and they think, oh, this is a person. I don't know what they think. I don't really care, to be honest with you, but they make general assumptions. And that's when, you know, I tell myself and I tell other people, you know, you have to remember, like I said, if I was touring my entire life and if I was forced to perform on stage, I would still have that in my head, like, oh, I'm a performer. I need to perform. I need to show my fans that I care about them, that I want to interact with them, and that I'm still performing and that I'm still good at what I do. So I think in her defense, I really truly believe, let me word this properly. I think she's just doing her best job that she can do under the circumstances that she's been put in.
Yeah, well, I think everybody understands that Britney Spears has had a very difficult upbringing and currently is also struggling, and for sure isn't I mean, hopefully she's in a better place now, but it's definitely, I mean, the most famous story in the narrative of her life is her newly born child, and to have a child taken away from you is just, I mean, I just couldn't possibly imagine what that would be like as somebody with a 3-year-old. The most painful thing in the world. So can understand the trauma, the PTSD.
She's been through a lot. Yeah, she's been through a lot. And I've, not to stay on this topic for too long, but you know, I've told my CEO, I've told other people as well, you know, she's been through things that most men would not be able to handle. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that with, I'm not saying that to glamorize it. I'm not saying anything like that, but she has a lot of strength. And I give her the utmost respect and credit for everything that she's been through. I really do.
Okay, there you hear it, folks. Straight from somebody who's been deeply connected with her. So we should all kind of take our hats off to Britney Spears and give her the respect that she deserves and the privacy that she deserves.
Absolutely.
So yeah, well, thanks for sharing that tidbit.
No problem.
But so back to you. You know, what are your aspirations? What are you looking to do in the next year or so, aside from the album? I mean, in addition to the album.
In addition to the album,
Yeah.
well, I have a lot of big producers following me on Threads and on Instagram. So personally, I don't know if this is giving too much away of myself, but personally, I kind of wait for the right moment, and then I'll send a DM or send a message, and I'll say, hey, I'm releasing this with Bentley and blah, blah, blah. Would you be interested in working with me? So that's my goal, I guess you could say, or one of my goals. because like I said, I have 7 songs. I would like to make it to 10. So I have a few more tracks that I'm trying to get together that I would like some big names to work on with me.
Sure. But we don't get those hints. I guess we're
I
gonna have
don't
to
know if I'm
wait.
allowed to say. Yeah, we have to wait.
Okay. We will wait patiently. We'll stand by.
I'll come back. I'll be back on your show. Don't worry.
Okay, sounds great. We're looking forward to that. Um, hmm. Well, uh, but as far as your lifestyle,
Mhm.
what kind of lifestyle do you look to lead, or is that even of interest? Are you just sort of completely career focused in terms of your aspiration? You know, you want to release an album, you want to go world tour, or are you interested in like having this even, you know, balance between social media, working your tail off, and like being able to relax a bit, take breaks, go on vacation? What's your mindset?
I would say my mindset is focused, determined. I'm not gonna lie though, I do like having breaks. So um
So you're not a workaholic?
I am when it comes to the music, I am a workaholic, and I will say I obsess a little bit, maybe a little bit too much. You know, for example, when I did my first single, when I released my first single with Bentley, Woke, I had like, I don't know if you know what stems are, but for people that don't know that are listening,
Very much do. But you can
basically
tell us, yeah.
yeah, they're basically the how do I say this? The raw files of your vocals. So when I sent that in to be mixed, and I don't tell many people this is my first public thing telling you this, but
Thank you.
when I sent that in, I sent in like 35 stems, all of the same take. So I guess you could say, yeah, I am a little obsessive, and I am a workaholic when it comes to the music. Because a normal person would probably send in like 2 or 3, call it a day. I recorded that thing 35 times and I found a perfect take for 35 times. I'm not joking. Um,
Now,
so yeah.
I think this is a testament. This is a good thing. You know, you love your music. You don't want to have to, you don't want to regret something that you recorded 20, 30 years ago. Like when you're 80, 90 years old, you want to look back on your albums that people are listening to and be like, cringe every time you hear like that one note that was slightly flatter or sharp.
Yeah.
That's where you're coming from.
Yeah. I guess you could say being a perfectionist is natural to me, but sometimes it's a little obsessive. Yeah.
Would you would you say that any of the artists that you have worked with, like the bigger artists,
Uh-huh.
Gucci Mane, Britney Spears, whatever, Future, are they, would you say that they're also the types to release multiple versions?
Um,
Is that like an industry type of thing, or is that just uniquely you?
oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I would say based on my experience anyway, and from what I know, the majority of the collabs that I have worked on, the bigger names, they do spend a lot of time, like, how do I say this? One of the people, I'm not going to name names, but one of the people I did work with, when I tell you like 9 hours straight in the booth recording, this person took 9 hours to record this song and just kept going over until they got the perfect take. So, I mean,
Is this with every song, or is just that was that one song?
I think it was just that one song for that person.
No,
But
well, there must have been breaks.
say again.
There must have been breaks.
I would
Pizza
assume
break,
so. Yeah, yeah,
water, bathroom break.
yeah. But I mean, again, it's the whole. I think it varies too, depending on the genre. Um, I think with rap and hip hop, for example, those types of producers and those types of artists as well, they're more used to just going into the booth, doing 2 or 3 takes, and then calling it a day, being done.
Mhm.
But then you go into the pop genre, for example, and you realize that, okay, well, auto-tune can't fix that, Melodyne can't fix that, you need a perfect take.
Yeah.
So it varies depending on the genre as well, I would say.
Um, I completely get it. You know, the like the additional facets of, you know, factors such as the melody and then like the inflections, the way you pronounce the words, along with the melody. There's many more aspects to what comes out of the mouth with pop. Um, not to trash not to trash, well, not hip hop but rap, but there isn't the melody factor.
Exactly.
So I guess it's a bit easier. Um, and yet you choose pop. You choose the hard road. That's what
I
you prefer, right?
I do. I Like I said, I don't know if I have a preference. I realize that I'm better at it. So
Mhm.
yes, but no.
You're better at it because you feel it, you feel the emotions more, the melody, or you just sort of, I don't know, just have an affinity towards singing.
I feel it. Yeah, I would say both actually. I feel it,
Mm.
but it's also it's ingrained in me. I mean, I remember like growing up when I was a kid, for example, my grandfather would play ABBA records. You know, like I know all of their songs. Don't even get me started. I can quote their songs and their lyrics. But you know, and that's like pure European pop, you
Oh
know.
yeah. And I love that they were at the epicenter of US pop,
Exactly, exactly. And that shows too how they crossed boundaries and changed so many things, you know?
which is rare. Like if you look at top 40s these days, I mean, I guess you got Dua Lipa. She's in the US now.
Right.
But she's Europe based. I'd like to see more Europe rooted artists personally.
I
I
would
think that
too.
there's more rich music to what they have to share. But that's coming from the vantage point of a classical musician.
I would agree with you though. I would definitely agree because, you know, you look at the influences. I mean, for example, just the facts that I know is that on Britney's Blackout album, there's a song called Freak Show, and that was the first song that introduced dubstep on the top 100 in the or the top 200 in the United States at the time. That was 2007. Dubstep had been happening for years prior in the UK. So you look at things like that and you're like, you know, like this genre or this type of style or this whatever, this element of this type of music is being transferred or crossed over, literally crossed across the ocean from Europe, and it becomes popular here. So for me personally, I do
Because
agree
of
with
one
you.
celebrity.
Say again?
Because of one celebrity.
Or yeah, or because of one artist. Yeah. And I would agree with you though. I think a lot of the innovation comes in terms of style comes out of Europe. I would definitely agree with you on that. 150%.
Interesting. I'm still hoping jazz might come back. You know, Michael Bublé. I'm hoping
He's
like
I like him. Yeah.
be like a following and you know more similar artists to that. And I don't think anything was quite like the 40s and the 50s era.
Probably
You know,
not.
aside from World War II, but
Yeah.
you know, the music aspect. Um, what could you? I'm sure you have plenty of advice to share with aspiring musicians, people in the music looking to make it in the music industry. Could you could you share any tidbits of advice, or you know, having been in it for how many years, how many decades?
Since 2012, but I was friends with Britney prior to that, so 2007, 2008.
Yeah, at least 15 years or so.
Yeah. Um, in terms of advice, I would say staying consistent is key. And you know, I see a lot of artists who or aspiring artists who, you know, they'll release one single, they don't get the traction or the attention or the streams or whatever that they're looking for,
Hmm.
and they just stop. They don't continue pursuing it. They don't continue engaging with their fans or whatever the case may be. They don't continue.
Hmm.
Um, for me, I have found that the most valuable lesson to learn is that, again, consistency, being consistent. You have to be consistent in this industry in order to succeed. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere.
Hmm.
You know, if I, how do I say this? If I was looking at myself now, or looking back on my, how do I say this? Looking back on myself, if I was, 16, 15 years old and I was just getting started, I would probably tell myself the same thing: stay consistent, because eventually something will take somewhere. Somebody is going to say yes. You might get 100 no's before you get a yes, but that yes will be worth it.
Mm-hmm. So you really need to make the effort to reach out and connect with other industry professionals.
Definitely.
Hmm.
And it could be, it could be anybody. It could be the sound engineer at a local studio. It could be a major producer. It could be, your best friend who makes beats for you. Anything that involves knowledge and learning more about how to propel yourself to success, I think, is very important.
DJ Khaled said recently in an interview that he spent, I don't know whether it's true or not, he spent like decades volunteering his time to try to make it to where he is today. Not everybody has done that. I could tell you myself, I'm full-time musician, performer, producer. I don't volunteer my time. Maybe that's a mistake of mine. But I'm curious what your thoughts are when you hear advice like that. Is it valuable to, I don't know, show up to a show and just contribute and just help out and just make connections? Does that make a difference? Is that something you would recommend?
I would recommend it, actually. Yes, I really would. And I think the reasoning behind that is networking is so important. It's so important. And a lot of people don't, not that they don't acknowledge it, but a lot of people, I mean, I don't know, everybody's different. Some people have social anxiety and they don't feel like that they can network with other people. Some people think it's a waste of time. I mean, there's a plethora of reasons, but I think for me, going off of the notion or the quote that you said that DJ Khaled said, I would agree with him, and I would probably have done the same thing. Just showing up to events, showing up to concerts, showing up to whatever the case may be, to network, to get your name out there, to meet people, to collaborate with people. I mean, any network, any person you meet, that can be a potential collaboration in the future. You don't know,
So
So
pride could be one of the biggest killers of a person's career,
I would say so.
which is ironic because there could be a lot of, when you look at a number of accomplished singers, musicians, performers out there, there is some aspect of pride.
There's definitely the aspect of pride, but I will say, I believe, for me anyway, I believe staying humble is the most important thing. You have to be humble, because otherwise, I mean, yeah, granted, like I said, there are a lot of snakes and negative people that just want your money for certain things, I'm sure, as you know. But
not just the music industry.
no, that's everywhere. That's humanity.
Humanity.
Yeah. So there are a lot of like those types of people, but I really believe staying consistent and staying humble are the two most important things. You have to be nice to other people. You can't approach somebody and be like, hey, look who I am, look what I've done, I'm on this, I'm on that, give me this because I'm entitled to it. It doesn't work like that.
You can't just walk around bitch slapping people and hoping that something comes of it. That doesn't work.
Exactly.
So it's, I could see people misinterpreting what it takes to make it when they see, like a badass artist out there acting like they're, like they're a jerk, when in essence they're really nice in person.
But I think
Sort of,
that's a valid point, though, to what you said, is a lot of artists create an image, and sometimes you can't tell if that image is real or if it's constructed, or if it's how they actually are. I think that's a very valid point you just touched on, though. Yeah.
I think about somebody like Cardi B, who's like the classic example of somebody who seems like she's rough on the edges. She's got this shell, possibly due to her upbringing. I don't know. But she could be very kind, very nice in person. I've never met her.
No, I haven't either, but I can imagine I would probably agree with that assessment of her. Yeah.
Hmm.
You see other artists too, you know, like when they had first started out, for example, like The Weeknd or Lana Del Rey.
Yeah.
Both of them definitely constructed their image, and look where both of them are now. I mean, I think they're both genius,
Mhm.
extremely talented artists, but there was a certain degree of how do I say this properly? Of constructing an image, I would say, and you have to in order to get the public to latch onto you. So
Mhm.
they were both smart. I will say that much.
So do you feel like music production should be fan focused or should be, I don't know, you could take Dave Matthews as an example. He says he doesn't give a crap what his fans want to hear. He just gets up there and plays whatever he wants to play.
Mm,
What are your thoughts on that?
I would say 50-50.
Mhm.
I
Do
would
what you
say
love.
do what you love, but it's also important to listen. It's important
Mhm.
to have feedback from other people.
Mhm.
Um, if you think a song is great and someone else thinks it's crap, then you know you can always say to yourself, well, it wasn't meant for them, or you shouldn't be listening to it anyway, or you know, you can
Mhm.
come up with a bunch of excuses in your head. But at the end of the day, I really think you have to combine both of them. You have to do what you'd like to do, but you also have to you have to be able to take input from other people.
Mhm.
Um, and constructive criticism and feedback and a lot.
And having mentioned what you did, what you just said, do you work in teams when you're producing music for, you know, bigger artists? Are you part of like a network? Are you just pitching random songs to random artists that you want to connect with?
Can you rephrase the question? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Sure. Well, you're talking about um, networking and connecting
Correct.
and hearing feedback and that being sort of like a prerequisite to being able to achieve something as an artist, as a producer.
Mhm. Mhm.
So are you translating that to you produce music for other artists, correct?
I've produced for other artists, but the only release that I have that is my own production, I've only released one, I believe, if that
Okay.
makes sense. Sorry, I'm
Okay.
confusing.
So you have produced music for other artists, but you don't. My question is, if you work with do you work in teams to produce music for other artists, or is that not something that you do?
Teams, no, I usually work alone.
Okay. And you just sort of, in terms of your strategy, you like you're not showing up to a networking event and, you know, I don't know, trying to build connections that way.
I mean, I have in the past, absolutely. I think it's really important, like I said before, about networking. You know, um there's songwriting conferences, there
Mhm.
are so many different, especially in New York where you are,
Mhm.
so many different avenues and opportunities to not only get yourself heard, but like I said, you never know who you're going to meet. That's really what it comes down to. You never know
Mhm.
what another person can do for you or what you can do for them.
Mhm.
And I think it has to be mutually exclusive. It has to work both ways. You both have to be able to offer each other something, and who knows, that could result in your wildest dreams coming true. You know, you never
Mhm.
know.
So just making connections whenever you can. And so now, like a networking event like NAM, which costs really a few thousand when you factor in the flight and like the registration costs and that type of stuff, would you recommend that to aspiring musicians? Something like that, just as an example.
As an example, yes, I would. I wouldn't recommend spending thousands of dollars when you're just starting out. I don't think that's a smart move.
Mhm.
Um, but I will say, you know, like something like NAM or something like an event that BMI or ASCAP or one of them might put on. I know that they do like annual um what's the right word, annual conferences and presentations and whatnot, I would recommend those. I think it's important to go to them and to network. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have a fascinating background, so there's
Thank
I mean, you should write a book, you know?
Yeah, thank you.
You wrote what was that song I'm talking about? Woke. What was the meaning behind woke? I can kind of guess, but what was your intention behind
Well,
that
my
song?
intention, I wrote it, it starts off, the intro line is, I woke up in a dream of you and me. So I didn't know what to call the song at the time. It didn't have a title. And I was trying to be really creative. And I was like, okay, well, we have this word that has suddenly appeared in the public phenomenon, the word woke, on politically, for some reason or another. People have picked that up and they've started spitting it out constantly, despite it
Well, they
not.
took it from you. They took it from your song.
Yeah, well, I could say that too. Yeah.
Like CIPRI wrote the song. We're gonna make it a publicity thing for
Exactly.
the party.
So I mean, at the time, I had just seen news articles and people and politicians and whatnot, and they were like, "Oh, woke this, woke that," and so I thought to myself, the opening line is, "I woke up in a dream." I'll just call the song "Woke," and that's how that came to be. But
Cool.
there was no actual, like, what's the word, political influence or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it works in my favor, because people see it and they're like, oh, maybe this is a political song, or maybe this has some underlying notion or something like that, and they listen to it. So I think it's a good thing. It's a good trick to get people to listen, I guess you could say.
So maybe you should call a single "Fu," and then people might be intrigued to find out, well, what are they talking about, me?
I think Lily Allen did that, actually. She has a song called "Fu." Yeah.
I figure there are a couple out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a favorite artist that you listen to?
Favorite, like, of all time?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm clearly Britney Spears is up there.
Yeah, no, I would say I mean, she was definitely influential and she was a mentor, so I can't deny her presence,
Mm-hmm.
But Britney is up there. I would say, in terms of songwriting and artistry, Lana Del Rey has always been a huge influence for me. I remember when her first album, Born to Die, came out, and I went to Target that next morning and I bought it. That was the last CD I bought, and probably one of the only CDs I've ever bought. But I was so, what's the word, encapsulated with her music, that I was really focusing on her songwriting skills, though. And I think, with that said, in order to become great, you have to study the greats. So you look at Lana now, and I mean, she has like 8 albums, something like that. The Weeknd as well. He was a major influence in my early stuff. And again, seeing how they go from genre to genre, they aren't limiting themselves to one aspect of the music industry, which I think is important.
They're not limiting themselves to one genre in terms of certain
Correct.
aspects of music. So then there's something very purposeful in what you're doing with your own music.
I would say so. I hope so.
Yeah, because you're looking to sort of spread your wings and see what opportunities emerge and see what fits best with your voice. It's funny because you mentioned, oh, that was the last CD I bought.
Yeah.
And now that CDs are kind of gone, it's like, but records are back. Here are vinyls.
Yeah.
They're 3 times larger and more expensive.
More expensive, and you need a player for them. Yeah.
Yeah, which I don't know. I don't have yet. I might.
I don't either.
Well, if you go on tour, you're gonna need some vinyls
Absolutely.
and CDs.
Yeah. Maybe tapes too.
I mean, you need stuff right. When are those gonna come back? We got all this digital tape technology to make our track sound better, right?
Yeah.
So why aren't we playing music off of tapes? That's just something. Kramer tape. Matt, I don't know if you deal with those types of add-ons for mixing. Anyway, it's so before I forget, I just wanted to ask you, Can you share with our audience where the best place to find your work is?
You can go to Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, any of them.
Okay. Where do they find you specifically? Just,
Oh, well, I mean, my Instagram is
like handle. Yeah.
My Instagram is CIPRI Music, CIPRI Music, all one word.
Mhm.
I also have a website with the same name.
Okay.
And yeah, check me out there.
Awesome. And are you looking to release any music videos anytime soon? Is that something you see as important to like connected to your single releases on Spotify?
I feel yes, actually, it's something that I'm in the process of working on right now.
Mhm.
I don't want to say too much because it hasn't been finalized yet.
Okay.
So, but I do think it's an important aspect to have. The visual aesthetics of a song are just as equally important as the song itself.
Mhm.
So I would say so, absolutely, yes.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks so much for sharing your insights and your time with us. A pleasure
Oh, thank
speaking with
you.
you,
You
Chipri,
too.
and I hope to connect with you soon. And we'll share your handle in the show notes,
Okay,
so that people can check you out.
perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Soundwave Chronicles podcast, where you can stream our interviews wherever you get your podcasts. We hope you enjoyed the interview and learned something new today. And if you did, please leave a review so we can keep bringing you great content. Thank you and have a great rest of the week.